Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Griggs, and I work for IBM in the NodeJS runtimes team. I've been there about 4 years, and my time's kind of spent half of it spent contributing to the Node.js project, so contributing to upstream Node. The working groups I'm particularly active in the Node project are the release working group and the package maintenance working group. Also a TSC member, and when I'm not contributing to Node Core, I'm kind of helping internal teams with their Node.js usage, writing tutorials for IBM Clouds, that kind of thing.
Magic. Guy, over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm mostly an open source developer, actually. I managed to build a lifestyle around open source. And I do consulting and then work on the stuff that I'm interested in, which has been Node.js and build tools and a lot of module stuff. I'm also the author of SystemJS and JSPM. And I think it's a great space to be in. I don't think it's as easy as it might look doing open source, and it's fun stuff, but it's a super hard lifestyle. But great to be able to discuss some of these things today.
Awesome. And Matteo, I think we already know you, but would you like to introduce yourselves again?
So, yeah, I am Matteo Collina. I'm a TSC member. Been doing Node.js for the last few years as part of my open source endeavors. I mainly work on streams in the Node.js code base. I also maintain HTTP 1, 2, net. And from time to time, people ask me to work on child process and crypto, but I don't really understand much of those. But there is some streams in there, so I'm usually pinged about them as well. This is essentially I'm not full time doing open source. I am Nearphone sponsored me to work some of my time on open source. The rest, I'm technical director at this company, Nearphone. Hey, Nearphone. And we do where we help clients using JavaScript things on the web and mobile and everywhere you can literally stick JavaScript into. So yeah, that's us.
That's everything. And last, but by no means least, Vladimir.
Hey, feel free to call me Vlad. It's shorter. So I apologize for the mask, but I'm based in France, and the office and country regulation forced me to wear the mask in the office. Whoa, mask's friend. I'm Vlad. I work at this startup named Screen with a Q instead of the C, where I do full-time Node.js security. I'm mostly active in the Node.js community regarding security and everything linked to request tracking or async hooks, because I need that to audit what processes do. And I contribute to Node.js. I started contributing to Node.js 3 years ago, I think.
Oh, wow. So you're all very experienced with Node.js. You know it inside out, and that's why we're having this panel discussion. So I wonder who's going to kick us off by telling us what the most exciting features coming soon in Node.js are.
I'm going to start with that one.
Yeah.
So Node 15 is coming soon, and we do 2 major releases a year. That's the only opportunity we get to make breaking changes. So Node 15 is due out on the 20th of October, so about 5 weeks away. And we've already started building up the content to go into that release. The thing I'm kind of most excited about in terms of major changes is the changing of unhandled rejections. So we're going to be defaulting to throw, and that conversation goes back a very long time. We've been trying to reach consensus on that for possibly years. So it's good to finally get something out there to get some user feedback in Node 15. So that's the feature I'm looking forward to most.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add anything onto that?
References. So yeah, Matteo is excited about this one too. I'm really excited about the unhandled promise rejection thing, but I've been waiting for weak references in Node for years. Basically, gives you the ability to reference a variable without preventing it from being garbage collected, meaning you can even have a handler that will be called when it will be garbage collected. Almost. So it will make your life fun when you want to check what's happening, or when you want to make sure you don't have memory, you can still have access to some data set. I think Matteo is already has a PR ready to build amazing stuff over it.
Mhm.
I can't wait.
And any more to add to that, Guy, Matteo? Would you like to tell us what's exciting you in the future?
I don't know. Probably trying not breaking everybody with the security release that we are doing today. So there is that. No, joking aside, there probably needs some cleanup on what we are releasing today, which we can't really talk about yet. That will probably land on Node 15 with some changing on defaults and making Node a little bit more secure. Or less secure, or maybe even having some guide to help you be more secure with your Node servers. So,
It's all about the security. And Guy, can you top any of that?
It's okay. Go, Guy.
In Node.js, it's actually difficult. If I try and think of what's coming out in 15, there's so much to track. It's unbelievable how much goes through into that project every day and how many commits there are. I mean, there's features I'm super excited about, but I have no idea what their status is in terms of compat. I mean, top level await is a great one that I've really loved seeing recently because it removes all those wrappers that you need, that and unhandled rejections, and it just makes promises and async functions so much nicer to work with now in Node. So that's a huge point to have reached finally. And I really would be interested to hear how that TC39 meeting went, Matteo or anyone else on, because it's. I think that it sounded like that was quite a tricky one. So congrats on getting that through.
That was Miles. Hi, Miles. Thank you for double level away.
Thank you, Miles, from everybody watching, I guess. Okay, so if we move down the questions, there's loads of exciting things coming up. We can see that. But one of the most loved features recently added was async local storage. This has been a few years in the making. What do you all think of it?
I will take this one first because I was one of the main author of this PR. So to be honest, it was first of all a personal relief because I think the PR has been open for 1 year, and it has been the second most discussed PR in the history of the Node project last time I checked. I'm really happy we got there. And even if I did the last PR that built the higher level API, it's relying on the shoulders of giants. Matteo has been very involved in building the layers that make this API safe and much more performance efficient than any other implementation. And a countless number of people have participated in the making of this API. It's pretty exciting because it changes the way we can code in Node. We can start to consider that we have a thread storage or something that mocks a thread storage. And it doesn't sound like much after 10 or 12 years being used to do Node and using rec and using closures and passing the context in all functions. But right now, in terms of logging, in terms of context knowledge, in terms of I even had a last example. Someone building an ORM is using that to do transactions. So you can start transactions and you don't have to use a context. You just start your transaction, do everything you want. And if an exception happens, it's automatically roll out. So I'm pretty excited to see what the community will come with this API with new things. I think Fastify is already an official plugin for it.
Yes, we do. There is an official one, hopefully. I have not used it, so in fairness, I'm just putting my hands in front. I've not used. I recommend. So one of our clients actually is using it right now. So maybe I'm using it. So yes.
Are they happy with it?
They're not complaining.
Okay. Good enough.
It's a good sign.
I moved them from using CLS hooked to using the new stuff, and it went great. So that was everything that we could ask for. So
Awesome.
it was fantastic. But it was yeah, I know these PRs, this, like, I'm taking from this, thank you, Vlad, for the assist. I'm taking over for giving a little bit my take on this. So I just wanted to thank a lot of the people that have been involved in reaching this async local storage, because a lot of people don't get the huge, insane effort that went from started from Trevor Norris doing the initial batch of work on async hooks, on with then Andreas Madsen that worked in stabilizing them and making actually usable in one form or another. Lot of seg faults there to debug, not fun. Then I wanted to thank Young and Benedict from Google, that at the time they were working on V8, and they were super instrumental in making sure that we actually could ship, that could reach the level of performance that we got now. Before that, with async local storage, it's significantly better than what we had previously with a CLS hooks solution or a basic async hooks, because of the use of promise, especially when your application is full of promises, it's full with async await. And without them, it will not be possible. Essentially, they took me, they explained to me, I went there visiting their office to actually crack this problem. Benedict kind of give me a gist of a random idea that came through during the talk. I coded all night and I had a prototype in the morning. That's been my last all-nighter that I put coding. I was wrecked, by the way, on that second day, but there was a PR open. It only took 2 years, I think, to land that PR, something around that, and multiple people tried to take it over and have it landable because the core was done. The problem was there was so many edge cases that needed to be fixed elsewhere in NodeJS to actually be able to ship that. And after we've done all of them, we were able to ship it, and you can see the net results. So it's pretty great. So yay.
So everyone use it and put these amazing people's hard work to good use. So we've got another question here, which is following a theme going through the conference, really, and it's about TypeScript. TypeScript workflows are now a large part of the JS ecosystem. Will Node consider better support or compatibility for TypeScript workflows?
And dive into that one. And this is a super difficult topic, actually. There's a lot of aspects to it. But I think the first thing to note is that there are a huge amount of people using TypeScript in Node.js today. There's projects like TS Node, which allow you to run TypeScript natively in Node.js. And what's nice about these, what are effectively userland solutions to TypeScript, is that they allow you to get all the flexibility of these workflows, but in a way that's not going to cause any future problems for the Node.js project. And there are actually a surprising number of issues with TypeScript compatibility. And for example, I've been on the modules group in Node.js, and we had members of the TypeScript team joining those modules meetings for a long period of time, and we've been discussing a lot of compatibility and working with them on trying to improve the compatibility between the projects. But there are also some long-standing differences. I mean, just to give one example, in Node.js, when you import from the module system, from the ES module system now, when you import a common JS module, you get the default export, which represents that module. And that is completely in conflict with the way that TypeScript types are all defined through definitely typed and these public typing systems. So what that means is all TypeScript types out there for Node.js are probably wrong. So how do you reconcile that? And we've had meetings for years discussing with the TypeScript team, trying to work through these problems. In fact, we've got a PR up for Node.js to try and smooth one of these problems in particular, and that'll go either way this week. We may or may not get it. I would say it's probably worse than 50-50 at this point, unfortunately. But at the same time, you can achieve these things in userland. We have loaders for modules. We have ways of hooking into the system. And so I think a good goal for the project is to continue to collaborate and work with tooling creators and users to improve these kind of userland hooks and tools that can build on top, and until we can do it in a stable way. If there were a stable way, I'd be all for it, but that's the big question. And there's another argument that TypeScript actually, unlike JavaScript, is not backwards compatible. That types do break over time, and as they improve the typing support, you might do a major upgrade and break your entire app. And JavaScript traditionally as a language has always been fully backwards compatible with itself. And so there is a slight philosophical difference, I think, as well there.
Okay. Has anybody got some strong thoughts on TypeScript in Node, or should we move on?
I can just one more thing. We have recently tried to fight that hell in the Fastify community. It was literally a hell to have something that can work with the Node Core ESM system and be typed, to have it working on TypeScript projects. Okay, and to have it working with TypeScript project with different flags, because you know that there are TypeScript does not exist. There is TypeScript with some configs, and there are infinite flavor of TypeScript based on the permutation of those configs. So this is my personal take on TypeScript. So it's when you talk about TypeScript, can mean one of those permutation. Yeah. It's just it's not defined as a language. Okay, the behavior is defined by those configs, so it's very hard to support. If you support one, you cannot support the other. You can try, but it's very hard. So having all of this, we have found that in order to have it working with and also have it working with Babel and Webpack projects and all those systems, we have found that in order to have it all working fine, we needed to add to all our CommonJS modules a .default property. Otherwise, they won't load. It won't load.
Don't do that.
It's essentially everywhere. It's the only way right now to have it supporting and have it working to have supporting on all those three things.
Sometimes you have every combination of configs all working perfectly. You know, you reach a point where you just have to say, you know what, here is the configuration we encourage and we know will work and get compatibility. And ideally, we could continue to move that work with the TypeScript team towards a better compatibility. But it's tough because every tool wants to support all its users. And then when you combine the tools together, you get all these complex cases. And the thing to bear in mind is that Node.js as a project it's not going anywhere. Node.js has a commitment to its users in the long term, and we cannot ship something that's going to, down the road, cause us any problems. And for all we know, JavaScript itself could implement types one day. I mean, it's not off the cards. And you know, so how do you build compatibility with all the possible future directions things might go in? Yeah, it's a super tough one. But don't put module.exports.default, please, Matteo.
Default, I can show you. It's actually the only way. Otherwise, it won't run. Like we reach that that moment that the .default property solves it everything.
The irony to this discussion for those watching is that Matteo might be one of our objectors to getting through a compat PR this week.
I might be, you know, I might have changed my opinion given the hell I've just went through. So, you know, I can give you some modules to try if we want to check if everything, if we want to chat.
So it sounds like TypeScript support is a little bit of a way off at the moment, natively.
or install TS Node.
Next question. Let's keep the answers for this one nice and short. And we'll start with Beth. What is your favorite Node backend framework?
So I still see a lot of Express in the world, and I think its simplicity, there's a lot to be said for it. A lot of people coming in seem to pick it up as their first web framework. So I still have a lot of love for Express, although the kind of delay in getting, I think it's Express 5 out of the door, is making me kind of reconsider. Fastify is definitely something I'm interested in. I've started playing with plugins and things. So I'm sure Matteo will be happy to hear that. Yeah, Express has definitely still got a place though, and it will do for a very long time.
Awesome. Guy, what's your favorite? He really didn't want to answer that one.
He left, you know.
Yeah, sorry, that's how I feel about that. Wrong button, apologies. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people who just likes to use as few dependencies as possible. So I'm not the best person to ask. So when I'm putting things together, I like to just start with the basics, and it depends on what you're building. But yeah, I think Matteo is the better person to ask.
Oh, well, in that case, we'll go to Vlad. What's your favorite?
So it's hard to choose a favorite. So I used to contribute to the Happy ecosystem. So and I built agents for Node.js. I haven't built web backends in a while with Node.js. So I'd say Happy and playing with Fastify was actually pretty nice and fun. So Happy and Fastify would be my go-to.
Okay, and Matteo.
Okay, so you got to me and asked this question, and you know, a long time ago, I was essentially doing what Guy was doing, and is essentially I was just using Node Core and mounting things on top of it, and turns out that approach is hardly requires a high level of skills, and as part of my job at Nearform, it's one of the goal is to enable our developers, but enable our clients as well, of course, to develop performance, scalable, and Node.js application with as quickly as possible. And so I ended up codifying a lot of the things that I wanted from a framework, in a framework. And so I had the idea of building Fastify. It took maybe 10, 15 people more on the contributing to it to actually ship it. So that was the starting point was I'm doing it on my own, but then I started one, and turns out that a lot of other people are actually enjoying what we decided to do, and how we decided to embrace new features, embrace new features of the language, and so on, and make it even go a little bit one step further into userland to some extent, what Express does. Fastify also helps you a little bit into structuring your application and try to avoid some certain class of problems that a lot of Express application have. Know that one of the problem of Express is that it suffers from the Stack Overflow and old Stack Overflow response and old Node tutorial. So there is a lot of things on Express out there that are not correct anymore. They were written in Node 0.10, 0.12 type of thing. So that is kind of probably the biggest problem on Express, and why people from time to time have some problems running Express in production, at least from my experience.
Okay, 4 brilliant answers there. One slightly biased, but we'll let you off
They're
for
not
that one.
biased at all.
So we're approaching the end here, so we'll keep the answers to the next question short. Node.js recently shipped 2 frequently asked features, ESM and top level await. What do you think of them, and why are they still under experimental status? Beth, I wonder if you could start us off with that one.
Yeah, I've not really dug into these two specific features, but in terms of LTS and backporting to LTS lines, we do have quite a kind of rigorous process for that. If we feel a feature isn't ready to go back into LTS and it's going to cause some instability, we'll kind of label it baking for LTS and let it sit out in the ecosystem. And that's kind of an undefined period of time. It's just when we can kind of gauge that things are ready to go back. One of the other things that we do use to try and gauge how ready the ecosystem is for a particular feature is we use a tool called CityJS. And what CityJS does is it runs, say, 100 popular modules test suites against the new versions of Node to kind of test whether we're going to break any of the modules out in the ecosystem. And we pick those 100 to be like the most popular, but also some kind of niche use cases that need to be captured, and we need to check that we're not regressing. So in terms of the LTS policy of backporting things, it's kind of left to the LTS team to decide when it's ready, but we do defer to the working groups that take ownership of specific features. So for ESM, we'd probably defer and work with the modules working group to kind of agree that it was ready to go back into LTS.
Perfect. I don't think we need any more expansion upon that unless somebody else wants to chime in.
Maybe Guy, have you got anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I can say that like the CityJS process has definitely caught a few things during the modules process that we've shipped from the modules group, and then we've kind of it's been a baking process as things have gone out, you know, baking is the term with this stuff. It's when it's all stable and no longer moving around too much, then things can shift. And with the LTS concerns as well, of course. But it's also worth remembering that Node.js is a like the support for Node.js is still there. And despite the experimental status for modules, what we have today can be largely considered to be the major implementation at this point, I think.
Okay. I know we've got a few junior developers and people who are just about to enter the industry watching. I wonder if you could just very quickly describe what LTS is and means. So, anyone?
Sure. Yeah, LTS, we use that term to mean long-term support in Node.js, and we deem even release lines enter long-term support, and that means they will be supported for a much longer period of time. It's up to around 30 months. So really, this LTS process came in to support maybe larger enterprises that were having trouble keeping up with the fast-moving releases. So giving an LTS distinction to certain release lines means that people have a platform which they can grow and then gradually migrate up to the newer versions. Yeah, it's about 2 years roughly of maintenance before you are forced to move up to a different release line.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Beth. So Vlad, I'm going to come to you with this one to kick off with. What is the most unusual and fun use of Node.js you have seen?
So I will talk about personal stuff. I will talk about my brother. He actually has optimized his whole apartment with Node.js. So he has a Raspberry Pi that starts the water boiler just before he comes home, that makes sure that the temperature in the apartment is good enough, that monitors the baby and wakes them up when the baby starts to move too much because they know the baby will wake up. Basically, his whole apartment, if it was not exciting, it might be a bit creepy, but the whole apartment is now handled by Node.js. He likes the ease of doing event-based programming. He loves that there are a lot of IoT libraries to handle everything. So yeah, his apartment is basically Node.js run so far. I think even the fridge and the grocery list is handled by Node.js right now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to have him open source it, but the code is so dirty, he's really self-conscious about that.
Never mind. Any other cool uses anyone can think of?
Once upon a time, I've built a cocktail robot machine for NodeConf.eu. The cocktail robot machine has done 144 cocktails in 1.5 hours at NodeConf. and it was quite an amazing feat, to be honest. So it was IoT or something like that, if you want to call it, but it was, the testing and tuning for that was a little bit tricky, but
Oh, wow. And Beth, did you want to chime in with something then?
One of the case studies the OpenJS Foundation has done is NASA's use of Node.js that I find really cool. I think they use Node to monitor spacesuit data. So the realization that code you're contributing to open source and contributing to Node is actually in space is kind of one that you kind of take a step back and think, oh, wow. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite case studies use cases.
That is pretty amazing. If your code is in space, you get extra kudos points, I think. Guy, did you want to add anything to that, or should we move on to the next one, do you think?
I think that those examples are hard to tell, so we feel good to move on.
Fair enough. And like one of the things I've been trying to encourage people to do when I've been going around the event is get them to start contributing to the awesome packages that they use. Is Node.js something that's easy to contribute to, and is the community open to pull requests and things?
Surely enough, we are always happy to have pull requests, because it means that other people are doing our job somehow, so we won't complain. Well, I can share my experience. I started to contribute with a very meaningless PR in the util library in Node Core, and I got an amazing welcome, and I've got people who helped me make it better. And it was something very anecdotal, but it got landed. And I was a junior developer with 1 year of experience. I was a big fan of Node.js, still is. And I was like, yeah, my code is inside it. And people were amazingly nice. And yeah, it was pretty easy and pretty great experience. I will always remember that.
Awesome. So yeah, get started. Is documentation, like with many packages, is documentation the best place to start, do you think?
It can be. I think the best contributions people can make is fixing problems they have. Okay. So let's say you are browsing documentation, trying something, it doesn't work. PR the documentation. Let's say you feel something is missing in Node to make your life easier and make sense into Node Core. PR it, and we will be happy to discuss that with you. That's the best PRs because they are solving direct real life problems. So documentation or code, there are good places to work. Just solve your own problems.
Awesome. So we've got 6.
If I could add to that just very briefly, sure. Node.js is very much based on the PR model, and it's quite incredible how many people contributed, make contributions all the time, and it can be very small things, and it's a great way to get involved. But the community in Node.js is really excellent as well, and I think it can be very hard to get any large change into the project. But if you're willing to put the time in, you can accomplish anything. You can put anything into Node Core. You personally can. And the project is open to anyone to do that. And I think that's one of the most amazing things, that the core of the project is open to everyone.
Awesome. So we've got 60 seconds left. So we'll have to have a whistle-stop tour of this question. And I'm trying to throw the cat amongst the pigeons here. Dino, has that got the Node.js community a little bit scared that everyone's going to abandon it and start using the new fancy thing, or do you think there's room in the market for both? How about we start with Matteo for that one?
Okay, thank you for asking me the nice question. So as I've written somewhere, I got somebody asked me some very similar question in an interview recently, and I'm just going to repeat that. It's the greatest feature of Node.js is the massive NPM ecosystem and what gets you very quickly where you want to be. This is something that it has an enormous, you can't, that has this enormous velocity that we already have there. It's actually very hard to reproduce. So that is, I don't think Node is going anywhere anytime soon, mainly because all those people, all those projects are there supporting, built on top of NPM. And the other thing is that I'm very extremely skeptical of the Dino module system, and I found it completely unsecure, despite what they claim. So that's my TLDR, essentially.
Nice. Has anyone else got any really quick comments to put in on that subject, or should we leave it there?
I can try and keep it super quick. I think it's Node needs competitors. If anyone out there is thinking of starting a new Dino, please do it. I think we need as many competitors as possible at this point. It spurs innovation in the core of the project. Whenever I'm struggling to get something through, I'm like, but Dino will do this. And then it suddenly my argument gets unlocked a little bit more. So I'm all for it. I love Dino and I love having Dino. I think it's like comparing a grain of sand to a city. So I think personally, I want to devote my engineering efforts to Node because that's where the users are.
Gotta say, I'm ever so slightly disappointed. I thought we'd have some controversial views come out then. And with that, we're going to have to leave it there because the next talk is just about to start. But Beth, Guy, Matteo, Vlad, I would like to say a huge thank you for this excellent and informative panel discussion, as well as all of the hard work you all put into the software that everybody pretty much at this conference uses day in, day out. So thank you for that as well.
Thanks so much for having us. It was great.
Glad you liked it. To everybody
Thank you.
watching along, talks will start again up on YouTube, and if you head back to the main Remo room, I'm sure you'll be able to catch up with these 4 amazing people and ask questions on the floor, assuming they are still going to be around. So yeah, with that, we'll say goodbye to the Fantastic Four.
Bye. Bye.